Hello, my name's Emily. I'm an artist and jewellery maker. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd do a portrait because I've not done one for a while, and I've picked Henry Cavill as Geralt the Witcher, a firm favourite character in my household. That sounds like we have a lot of people in our household. We don't, it's just me and my partner, but we love Geralt and the Witcher so much that it could be enough for a household. In my portraiture, I like to use watercolours as a base because they have a bit more ability to blend away. You can be a bit more slapdash with it and it doesn't have to be too precise. I'm going to go over there with Copic markers and whatnot afterwards just to kind of refine areas. But I do like a watercolour base because it gives me kind of a rough guideline of where I want the certain colours and where the light to hit and whatnot. And I'm using my Beyond Indigo ones, which I absolutely love. I believe the shades I've got at the minute are Eucalyptus, Putty and Sand. But then in terms of the dark colours, I have Sepia from Sennelier, and then I have Payne's Grey from Schmincke. But I believe it's called Payne's Grey Bluish. The darkest colour I use as well, just thought I'd mention that, is the Old Holland Scheveningen Black Intense, which you will see more in the armour work, but I just build up a bit of texture. I'm quite loose with this because I don't want to be too obvious with where I want certain places because this is eventually going to be covered up anyway, but it just gives me that sort of warm-up element, making sure I know roughly where things are going to go, and it's also a really nice layer to then go over the top with pencils and whatnot as well. Like I mentioned, after that I go in with Copic markers, and these are predominantly the Chow ones, but I do have a couple of sketch markers as well, which are slightly more expensive, but I do have certain colours that I have those, which I don't see the point in getting the Chow versions when these ones work perfectly fine, even though they're a bit older. But I predominantly use these to mark out the areas that I want to go over in pencil, so this is more like the next stage of refining all the bone structure, where the light will hit, then the shadows, but also getting the facial features a bit more defined. I do for the most part do this with my portraits nowadays because I like the layering of all the different materials. I find I get a bit more of a more mixed media approach. It kind of looks a bit more looser, less kind of hyperrealism, which I used to do a bit more of, but I like to be able to see all the different layers. I like to see that it looks very much like a painting or having that painterly element, the strokes, all the different kind of pencil marks. I quite like that. I find that a really enjoyable part of the process. So that's kind of how I wanted to focus on this. I think when I was working in portraiture before, I was working so hard on making it look almost photorealistic that I actually lost sort of the fact that it's a painting, and that's the main reason why I like the paintings. I like brushstrokes. I like being able to see the process behind how you make that. And I think now that I'm doing this more for me, and it's less of that sort of what people expect of me now. People know that I like doing that element, and the people that want commissions from me now also like that element of my paintings. So I think for me, it's nice that I can do what I love in terms of the portraiture in a way that I love. I think part of the problem as well is that with my disability, I don't have the dexterity to allow myself to be as super precise as possible. My hands are very shaky. I don't have the grip that I used to have to be able to really be precise with my mark making, and while that upsets me because I loved that part of things, I really enjoyed the hyperrealism approach. It's not something that I can realistically do anymore, and rather than kind of dwell on that, I want to kind of adapt what I do. And in doing that, I fell in love with this process even more and found that because I don't have that sort of pain that I used to have when trying to really push through that perfectionism tendencies to be where I was before I had this illness, now I can kind of just deal with my own grief while still being able to do what I enjoy, which is portraiture and drawing and art. And yes, it's not the same that I used to do, but it's different and I still can do it. And that's the important thing. I'm not giving up. I'm still doing it. I will mention all the products that I'm using below, from the paints to the colours of the markers and whatnot. So anything that you are interested in knowing, it's all below. And some of those links, if they are linked with Jackson's, are affiliate links. So if you are shopping with that link, it does give me a small commission, which is a great way to support my business and my content creation and everything like that without having to spend any extra money. It's just a lovely way to give back to the channel that you're watching now, and I normally use that credit for art hauls and have towards anything that I buy from Jackson. So that's all linked below. I'm going to stop going on about that now because it makes me feel a little bit weird. So if I sound a little bit different, I do apologise. I have had about a week off from doing anything voice recording related because I've had a cold from hell and no one wants to hear my voice full of congestion. So I have saved you having to listen to that, and I'm back now with a slightly more tolerable voice to listen to, so I thought I'd go and continue this voiceover. So now the layers of watercolours and alcohol markers were done, I decided that then it was time to refine certain areas of definition with pencil crayons. Now in this painting specifically, I used quite a lot of the Colour Soft from Derwent. I had recently extended my pencil crayon collection and tried some of these, so I heard for the inexpensive price they are pretty good. I liked a lot of the muted colours for portraiture, so I wanted to give them a go, and I am really impressed. I really liked them. But then I did also use my standard Derwent drawing pencils and Derwent Lightfast for certain colours, Caran d'Ache Luminance, these trusty Faber-Castell Polychromos, and a couple of others that I might have not mentioned. I think their Derwent Graphitints were used a little bit in there as well. But all of those will be linked below. Like I mentioned, affiliate links will be used if I have them. You don't have to shop through them, but if you did feel so inclined, I would be very grateful. The way I normally do portraiture would be getting the definition on the bits that really do stand out. So for me, I like to do the eyes in terms of the structure first, from the eyebrows to the sockets, that sort of thing. And I do tend to go dark to light because I feel like once the darkness is there, I can then kind of go over with lighter colours to kind of really get that sort of tonal gradient. But also it allows me to get the kind of the values set up, so then I can adjust that as and when I feel so inclined. But I think that's just the way I've learned, and that's my normal go-to response. There's no right or wrong way of doing that. I just prefer to do that. It's worth noting I'm also quite heavy-handed, so I think by going dark to light, I feel like once I go too heavy-handed with the dark, I can then cover up elements that I may have gone a bit too heavily with lighter colours. And again, it's just how I learnt and how I prefer it. I think I've kind of worked quite well with this technique, and I'm trying not to worry too much if it's not the norm. One thing I have been enjoying experimenting in with portraiture, like you can see in this part here, is mark making. I think cross-hatching, things like that, make that sort of textures of art kind of show through rather than things looking too much like skin. You can actually sort of see where the pencils and what kind of materials that you've used, and as a mixed media artist I like kind of using that to my advantage and seeing sort of all the different types of materials within that portrait, so it almost makes it look more painterly. And it's something that I discovered more that I really enjoy in portraiture nowadays as I've kind of adapted that style. I think it especially works well with this character, Geralt, because he's quite a rugged character. I think the cross-hatching make things look a little bit more rough and imperfect, which kind of also works quite well with that character as well. One thing I've liked to show within portraiture nowadays is like the development and the process within the portrait itself, almost seeing the steps that I've gone to and like how almost the portrait has a story. And I think as I've gotten older and I've enjoyed the process more, or I've not enjoyed the process when I was younger, and now I'm trying to make sure that that is part of it as well, because it's more than just my job, it's my hobby as well. I don't want to kind of lose that love for it just because it is something I do for a profession as well. So I think having that element allows me to kind of get that enjoyment out of it, but also I'm very lucky that this gets to be my job as well, and being able to learn and adapt and develop those skills throughout that and find ways, especially newer ways that I've not done before, to enjoy these processes, that I also hope to share to you as well if you're finding that you are losing the love for portraiture or any sort of art form. I think the best way that I tend to do, if there's an element that I'm finding quite tricky to kind of invigorate myself to do, it's kind of like change what you've done and find ways that you do enjoy in other aspects and see if you can apply that to there as well. Change is always a really important part, and if it doesn't work, it's not going to affect too much. You just try something until it does work. And I use that not just in art form, in elements of like mental health, physical health, all sorts of things like that as well. So adaptation and development is such a massive part as a creative. The joy with that, especially if it's a hobby, is there are no rules, and if there are rules, you can kind of use them from other aspects to help you out with what you're doing. Colour theory, complementary colours, that sort of thing, but also in terms of learning from the masters like Johannes Vermeer and learning what they have adapted with what they've done, especially in specific periods of art that you really enjoy. I especially love the Art Nouveau movement, but also the Renaissance period as well in terms of portraiture, so I try to adapt that to what I like, but also I have elements that I've learnt from tattooing as well, so trying to merge all of those skills that I've learnt throughout into this one aspect that I'm really enjoying. I think that can be, knowledge in any aspect of life can be used to other aspects, and it's never a bad thing to learn new skills, but also to make them work for you. If you're unfamiliar with the character of Geralt, he's a witcher, meaning people often use him to kill monsters and whatnot, so this element of injury was included, blood and scrapes and stuff, because he does often find himself in trouble, not just always with monsters, but sometimes with his temper, shall we say. So I thought that was quite an interesting way of adding that character within that, and I did find a really good reference picture with some wounds that I could use within the other reference pictures that I used for the facial structure. And I think I captured it quite well. I tried to go for a more orangey blood stain because I think it shows the ageing side of it. If I've used something a bit more crimson and pink toned, I think it almost looked a bit too, I don't know, juicy. And I think I wanted it to look like it's been dried in there. It gives that, again, rugged approach. But I think trying to add a bit of depth within that as well shows the sort of depth of also the wounds and makes it look a bit more like it's been there a while. Geralt won't stop his mission just because he's got blood on his face. In fact, it probably adds to his sort of character and means people won't mess with him. And I wouldn't want to mess with him. He's quite scary. One thing I didn't want to add too much of was detail with the armour and whatnot. I wanted there to be a nod to what he was wearing because the costumes are fantastic in the programme and in the game as well. But I wanted it to look, I didn't want it to detract from the face. I think in a portrait, as much as I want kind of everything to look nice and refined, I don't want that to be the main focus. I want his face, the textures and stuff within that to be more of a priority to be seen than, say, his armour. However, that was a very fun part of it. I do really enjoy that part. But again, trying to make sure it was more nods to what it looked like opposed to it being like a super realistic, shiny piece of armour with all the detail. The next day I actually went back on the reference pictures and saw that his hair that I had initially designed was a bit too voluminous, shall I say. And I wanted to add a bit more of that sort of, I don't know, like lankness, that it's kind of been a bit grubby. And I think having that sort of element of wear and tear is a part of his character. You know, he is quite a dishevelled character because he's often found slaying monsters. So I actually went over a lot of the hair that I initially did with the marker in white acrylic paint to cover the elements, because that is part of portraiture. There's going to be parts where you do make mistakes, and being able to refine that to make sure it still doesn't detract from the outcome. I think I just got a little bit carried away with the hair. I think the element of the white wolf was in my head, so I thought, you know, silvery white hair, but to be quite frank, he gets quite grubby quite often, so I wanted to have quite a lot of that sort of dirty blonde element to it, a bit of green, mildewy sort of colours, because I think, especially with the lighting and the time of the where it's set, I think I wanted to have that sort of dishevelled element to his appearance as well, which I think worked quite well. I also want to point out this brush made the hair effortless. It was so much easier to do, and as someone who doesn't have the best control with her hands, I haven't got great dexterity anymore, but it made it a lot easier. It gave me that control, it gave me the hair strokes without having to be super majorly precise. I'll link that below. It's a Roland Langnickel paintbrush, but I will add that or something similar link below because it is really useful. I don't even know what it's called, but it's, again, fantastic brush for portraiture hair, and even fur would be great as well. After that, I decided to go in with the finer details just to add that definition on the face. Again, he's quite a rugged character, he has quite a bit of stubble, and I wanted that to be present. The eyebrows as well, I especially wanted to pay attention to because the White Wolf being his nickname, I wanted there to be that sort of element. He's quite Viking-y, I think it's the Nordic sort of folklore approach to the game and whatnot, so I wanted that to be really enough of a detail that it's quite obvious, but not so overdone that it looks like it's too forced. So trying to get that happy balance was my main goal with that. One thing that tattooing has always made me kind of keep doing is that the dotting of the eyes is always done last. This was taken quite seriously in the traditional form of tattooing, where the saying, the eyes are the window of the soul, was taken quite literally. So when the eyes were filled in, thus the thing would be brought to life, and to continue tattooing after that would almost be like bad luck or a sign of poor etiquette. So, and for some reason I still practice that even though I haven't been a tattoo artist for like 6 years. But there we have it, Geralt of Rivia in all of his glory, the finished portrait. I'm actually really pleased with how I still kept the rawness of this portrait, in the sense that you can still see the artist's materials used, you can see quite a lot of the textures and whatnot from layers and things. That's something that really does satisfy me. To me, it's like visual ASMR. And it genuinely soothes my soul. But I hope this video soothed your soul in some way, or you enjoyed watching it in general. I really hope you did enjoy this video. If you like this video or like me, please do subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here and join me on all of my arty endeavours. Like I said, I've had a cold, so there's been a slight delay in this video, but I'm back. I have got a couple of videos prepped because we've got some building work going on in the bungalow, so I have been doing some pre-recording of some videos that I hope will go down well, but that will be administered as and when throughout the channel when I have the time to voice over, and there's not loads of banging around the house, but everything, like I said, that I've used will be linked below, and they are affiliate links, so feel free to use them if you feel so inclined. But I'm going to go. I hope you have a truly magical rest of your day. Please stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!